Have you seen movies in your lives which you never forget? I'm pretty sure you do. And NEET 2026 is no lesser than a movie. The NTA has just surrendered, the CBI has just got in, and the movie continues. But at the cost of what? At the cost of those aspirants who worked really hard, who could not provide money to the big hefty coaching centers out there, who really hoped that they could make it this time for the examination. And did it happen? We all know it didn't. But what really happened? Let's decode that in this video. It started off with one very simple thing. That is, we all knew examination was on May 3rd, where 22.79 lakh children appeared for it in 5,400 centers, which were very much secured, and it was just to grab those 63,000 government seats. But then, one guest paper, one leaked file with exactly 140 questions similar to what was there on the day of examination was seen, which guaranteed 600 marks to those of them who probably might have never ever prepared for the examination. So generally it's said that there is one seat, and for this one seat 36 children are competing, but in this scenario we definitely know that there is no seat. But there are so many children still waiting for their NEET dream to become real. But what went wrong? Let's rewind a bit. Starting with the first thing that happened by mid-April is what we believe. A guest paper assembly begins. It have started in Nasik is what we have got to know, but obviously there are more things to it. So there was a guest paper which was being scammed out from a printing press is what is believed. And now people came together, they made a separate sort of paper, and one day before examination, that is 42 hours prior to the examination, these papers which were there, they were circulated online through WhatsApp. Now you know that everyone in your house has WhatsApp. Now just imagine how faster it might have spread like a fire throughout every single place out there. Now, it happened one day before examination, but on May 3rd, we were all made to believe that everything is in control. People, there were separate news articles on which it was being said that children were being frisked, they were being checked thoroughly for any malpractices which was there. But still, on May 3rd, when examination happened, when 22.79 lakh children appeared for the examination under 5G jammers such that no communication could happen, all the communication which could happen could be stopped, it was being done in an illusion that everything is all right. But on May 12th, that is yesterday, the NTA came up with something, a bomb probably, saying that we have surrendered, we are giving it to CBI for the probe. And do you think it could have been stopped? Definitely. Do you know when it started? Very early, we know that. And do you know for how much price it was sold? I'll tell you. So taking back to 15 days prior to your NEET examination, it is assumed that, listen, all these things are something that is still under search. People are going in depth. Obviously, CBI will be coming up with a lot of things, but I'm just telling you. 15 days prior, it is believed that the same guest paper with the question paper, things like that, and everything was being given to the elite audiences who could afford 5 lakh rupees. It was sold at the price of 5 lakh or probably more to the elite communities. Now they thought that, okay, it's selling well, we have got the profit. Now, why not try it out with the middle class people, the lower middle class people? Let's see what if they also fall under this particular trap. And that's what exactly happened. And what's the best way to pass it to the audiences out there? WhatsApp. 42 hours prior to the examination, they thought that why not sell it to the ordinary audiences as well. They sold it in WhatsApp communities, channels and things like that at a price of 30,000 rupees. And I don't think that stopped there. I'm pretty sure it didn't stop there. But this happened. They targeted every single group because we all know that everyone wants to grab that one seat out there in that particular government college which could secure their future. Now, do you think that the history is getting repeated? Do you think that the same thing happened in the past? I'll say the history is not repeated. History is being set every single year when NEET is being done. Why? Because when I say that there was re-examination being seen not just in 2026 but also before that, there were different ways of scandal. In 2015, we saw that there was a hardware breach. People wore some jackets and stuff like that, and they wore some micro cameras, Bluetooth devices, SIM cards, this and that, and they went to the examination hall. They passed on the information about the question. Now from outside, people gave back the answer. They solved it and gave back the answers back to the people who were there in the examination hall. This is how things happened in 2015 in AIPMT. Now, if we see in 2024, do you think the history was getting repeated? No, there was no hardware breach. Rather, there was a physical breach. Okay, you know the papers are being stored at some places. Those strong rooms were broken violently at certain places. Okay, such that the paper were being leaked. And not just that, it didn't stop there. NTA awarded grace marks to children. And it was something that was bizarre because people came to know about that when children started scoring like full on full. So many of them, majority of them started scoring full on full. They started getting numbers like 718, 719, basically that which is not even possible. The scores which were not possible because according to NEET, if at all you give a right answer, you get +4. If you give a wrong answer, you get -1. Then it came to light that there were grace marks for children who came late to who had some disturbances in their exam centers, and it makes sense. Okay, it made sense to certain levels, which is why re-exam was conducted for those 1,500 plus children who were there. Okay. But did the breach happen at different levels? Yes, there was a physical breach. Now, how do you expect that this particular thing that happened has not reached to different parts of India, where different set of people were writing the examination? How could you say that it was localized? We never know about that. But anyway, in 2026, something else came into the picture. And that was what? A digital breach. That is exactly why I am saying that. If at all we ask this question that is the history getting repeated, I'll say no, the history is not being repeated. It's being set. New types of scandals are being created. In 2026, we see a digital breach where one single PDF, an online PDF, is circulated 42 hours prior, okay, to different WhatsApp groups, and people make the best use of it. Just give me a second. Yes. Now, coming back to the next thing, that is how do you think that this particular digital breach happened? How did this one original PDF get circulated throughout? We do not know the exact way, but we definitely know that NTA is not something that works alone. It works with different groups. For example, there are private printing presses where they have coordination with, they have third-party logistics, they have outsourced invigilators. Now you tell me one very important thing. If at all any of these systems fails, basically it's just the examination which is getting ruined, right? The same thing probably could have happened this year with the private printing presses which were responsible for making sure that there was no leak happening. There exactly the leak happened, and my dear children, no one got to know that. Only after exam, it was very much evident that something like this could have happened. Now, when something like this happens, who is responsible for that? Who is accountable for that? We say no one. We do not know about it. NTA will say that we don't know. We just have connection with the private printing presses. We just have connection with the third-party logistics. We just have connection with some outsourced invigilators. We do not know. We cannot take care of everything. But do you think that's fair? No. In this particular case, when you have this sort of setup, what exactly happens is that is fragmentation of responsibility. No one, my dear children, can take accountability of the action. Why? Because it's all fragmented. Because every single thing over here has a connection with what have happened, which is why everyone is equally responsible for it. Now just that. On May 3rd, when the examination happened, there was a security paradox. Paradox means something that is basically opposite. So there was tight security. We learned about that. There was performative security is what I say. What do you mean by performative security? That means everything seems like a performance. Everything seems like it was well set up. Okay, so just imagine children were being asked to remove their jewelries, remove their nose pins, because any bit of metal and things like that could actually lead to some issues. People might be using some, devices out there. With the help of that, they could cheat, which is exactly why this security was being created. Now, actually what was been happening? 42 hours prior, the paper was already leaked. So what was this actually? It was just a performance. Because it was already done. Okay, whatever bad had to happen had already happened. It's just like, for example, you invest your money in the bank. Now suppose the bank makes a very big door, steel door, for which they invest millions of rupees. Okay, and every person who travels through that door is being checked properly, they are being asked to remove their shoes, this and that. But at the end, insider of the bank is corrupted already and has given the information about the digital vaults and all the security pins and everything out there. Do you think it all makes sense? No. This is performative security, and it does not make sense because, my dear children, everything have already been compromised, because we are living in a digital era and it's so easy to do things. Now, the next thing that comes into our mind is that, can it be actually stopped? Because ma'am, you have said a lot about it, but do you think that it can be stopped? Obviously, yes. If at all we see India's model of taking examination, we have seen that most of it. For example, if I take NEET itself, it's an examination where children sit for it. It happens once in a year. Everyone gathers, give the examination. So whatever bad happens over here entirely. For example, one big issue happens over here, everyone who is involved over here, all the students who are writing this paper get affected. So if at all you're not able to understand it, I can give you a storyline. For example, I say that there is a big well. In this big well, there is too much amount of water, and everyone consumes this water. Every person in India consumes this water. Suppose if I add some poison over there in this water, what happens? Everyone who is consuming from this well is getting affected. On the other hand, what if we have different wells? We have different wells. So suppose if at all one well is contaminated, do you think the others would be affected by it? No. And that's what I'm trying to say over here. Here there's only one well, and it makes sure that everyone is affected. But if at all we talk about it globally, if we think what happens exactly in other countries, we have seen that any examination which is there, they have multiple levels. It starts off from the pre-med time, when they are in school. Their grades are being calculated. Over these years of studies that they are doing in their schools, their grades are being calculated. And basically an examination is being conducted thereafter, and further they have interviews. So there are multiple rounds of selection which is there, and it is happening throughout years. It's not a 1 year thing. Okay, it's not a 1 year thing. How well have you performed 3 years back? That is also being calculated, and according to which accumulated data is being created, and that's how things are being done outside. And I think that's high time to adapt that. And obviously, with the infrastructure, with the things that we have over here, it might take some time, but they should actually ponder upon this thing. And also, when I was talking about this, it came into my mind that there is something that is known as decentralization. You know, this is a centralized examination. One examination for whole of our country, right? But there should be decentralization, as I said. Why? Because if one well is contaminated, it is going to contaminate, and everyone is dependent on that well, everyone is going to be affected. But that's not the case if at all we have different wells. Suppose every state have their own examination. I know that there are negative effects of it, but just I'm telling, okay, this is something that has been told by different ministers out there who are still there in the government, or probably who are against the government. They have been coming in proposition of something that is known as decentralization. And not just decentralization, there will be obviously more to it, but just telling that if at all every state have their own examinations being conducted, okay, own examination being conducted at their levels, what is going to happen if there is any issue with any state? That state has to suffer. And obviously that's also not fair. There should not be something like that, which is why even if there is decentralization, there has to be something more to it. There has to be something more to it, and that is differences in the way that the exam is being taken. For example, do you think a computer-based test would be helping in this particular situation? Definitely yes. You might have seen in OMR you need a physical copy of the paper, and there is OMR sheet where you have to fill in. There are a lot of areas where things can go wrong. For example, there's physical printing. Here, if at all someone leaks the paper, obviously problem is there. Then they have to transport the papers via truck to different parts of our country. Again, if at all there is a leak there is a problem. Then they have to store it in local strong rooms out there. If at all, again, you have seen that, I have told about that, 2024, there was a physical breach. If that happens, again, that's a problem. That means that there is high leak vulnerability. On the other hand, if at all you talk about a computer-based test, there's cloud delivery and there is local description. That does not mean that there won't be any issues. But if you talk about the risk, the level of risk, it reduces. There is minimal leak vulnerability. Obviously, my dear children, if at all you talk in general, there are so many things that can go wrong. But if one by one we understand that where are things going wrong and what can be done to make it correct, I am strongly believing one very important thing, that is, it will make sense. It can make sense, and it can be done correctly as well. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line could be something like this, where we could have something that is known as decentralized evaluation, a computer adaptive testing, and zero error tolerance. The reason why it is being repeated is that there is no capital punishment for the things that is happening. Children have been working hard. There are literally so many poor families who have to sell their gold, their property to teach their children, just because they work really hard, just because those children which are there, they study really well, which is why the parents are ready to do the investment, because they think that their future will also be secure. But at the end, nothing is secure. And obviously, to make sure that it is restored, we have to push towards these things which are there, and obviously beyond it, because this is not something that can be happening overnight. You need a proper system for it. You need a system free of corruption. You get it? And yes, this is what I had to tell. And also one more very important thing, that is, we cannot secure a 21st century digital threat with a 19th century physical locks. And we have to admit that, and the government needs to know that, and the people need to fight for that. And all my dear children who are going to write the NEET examination, make sure you give your best, just like how you did previously. And let the government make sure that they do not do these mistakes again. Listen, you are not at fault, and do not believe so if someone says that. You are never at fault, and always understand whatever happens could have happened for a good reason. Let's assume that the next examination which you are going to give is free of all this theft, of all this corruption, and you are awarded for what you have worked hard for. Yes. And with that note, I would like to end up this particular video. Also, one more very important thing that is there is we have launched a 1-year online course for NEET and KCET aspirants, and the pricing for that is rupees 4,499. If at all you are a dropper looking for writing both the examination in the next year, make sure you check out the link in the description to get to know more. I know that it is not a right place to talk about it, which is why I'll conclude the video wishing you the best. Please take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.